joining this talk. Just to give a little bit of background, my name is Melinda. I actually work for CLE, which is College Living Experience. And then we have a sister company, ILE, which is Independent Living Experience. We both provide similar services. I would say one of the main differences is that with CLE, we have 6 centers across the country, and our students come to us. They come to one of our centers. With ILE, we have staff who actually goes and works with the individual in their home and their community where they are.
Are your college units, are they based at a college?
No. So they are not specifically tied to any one school program, anything like that. Students have complete freedom of choice in what program they attend, what they want to study. They can change their major, not have it affect their time, their status with us. They can even take a break from school. They don't have to attend school at all. Some of them don't. Some of them are just working on independent living skills, or maybe they're just more on a career exploration track, and that's fine too. So, but typically our students will, at CLE, they will attend some sort of college or program in the area, and we're located in areas with a lot of options for that. And with ILE, there isn't as much of the academic component. It's more focused on independent living skills, social skills, and employment with that. But we do a lot of the same general things. James Williams is the one who prepared all of this information. He is the director of ILE, and due to last-minute schedule conflict, he couldn't be here today, so
Can I have one for the
Yes.
Thank you.
I was in town for the IECA conference, so I'm happy to be here. We can go ahead and get started. I know a lot of families, they say, what can we do to kind of gauge how ready our child is? Are you guys parents or professionals or both?
Parent. And they're also nurse here because I'm a parent.
Parents, okay. So one thing that I hear a lot from families is, how can we start to gauge where we are on this big continuum of being ready for a more independent life? And just up here on the screen, there are kind of 4 main categories that we talk about. Academic, of course. Can the student complete the minimum level of college? Do they have the minimum level of skills? So that way they can be successful in what they love, in the classes that interest them. Of course, with the basic accommodations and support. We're not expecting the students to do this all by themselves. That's where we step in and we provide a lot of support. Social capabilities, social situations. A lot of our students come to us from other states. So as I mentioned, CLE has 6 locations, 2 in California, then we have Austin, Texas, Denver, Colorado, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Washington, D.C. So a lot of our students are coming and they're leaving home for the first time, and that can be, that's a tough transition for any college student, let alone anything else. So the social aspect comes in, life management capabilities. And again, we don't expect students to do this all individually, but do they have this? These are things that we work on: paying bills, budgeting, keeping an apartment clean, doing laundry, grocery shopping, cooking simple meals, and anything that goes along with maintaining their own independent life. Sorry, this one times out quickly. And we also work with them, so we work with them on all of these things, as well as transportation. Most of our students don't have a driver's license. A few do, but most don't. So we help them navigate public transportation, if that's available in their area through ILE, where they are. Or if they come to us, there is public transportation in all of our locations. So students use that to get around. So we provide instruction in that. And then, of course, executive functioning capabilities. Can the student manage a schedule, create a problem-solving plan, or organize their notebook? And a lot of them maybe don't have those skills in place before they come to us, but those are all things that we work on with them. So we are trying to teach them the skills that they can then take with them after they're done with our program. Stay 2 to 2.5 years is CLE. With ILE, it can be a little bit, sometimes it's a little bit shorter term, and sometimes it's longer, depending on the need. Questions or comments, like, I want this, you can feel free to just ask away, because, more self-advocacy is something that we really stress with our students. We want them to be able to speak up for themselves when it's appropriate and in an appropriate way. We see this with our students who are in college, if there's an issue with a professor or they don't understand or they need accommodations, we certainly can help with that and speak to whoever needs to hear it with the student. We can either model it for them and then they go to it, or we can kind of be there with them. But that's something that we really want students to feel like they can express their needs. What do they need and how do they need to get it done? So as they go through our program, this is what we hope that the student will be able to accomplish mostly independently. They should know how to discuss their disability and how it affects their learning. Their legal rights now, of course, we don't expect them to be able to recite law, or anything like that. I mean, most people can't do that, but at least they kind of have a general idea of what they're entitled to. Determine reasonable accommodations directly related to their disability, identify effective study skills, and manage their time. Time management is something that we work with them a lot on.
So when people come to you, are they coming to your housing? You have housing.
With CLE, yes, we have apartment complexes very close by each center. And students will typically live in those apartments, usually with one roommate, but each person has their own bedroom and own bathroom. So everybody has their personal space that they can keep the way that they want it, and they share a living space and kitchen. And that kind of helps with the social aspect. But some of our students, it just wouldn't be a right fit for a roommate, and that's fine as well. Everybody can kind of evaluate that in terms of what they feel is best for their child. So with CLE, they do come to us. They live in the apartments. There is an RA on staff 24 hours a day that's available for any questions, concerns, smoke alarms going off by mistake, that kind of thing. They'll be here to help. So, yeah. So this is just a curriculum, a link that might be of interest. Maybe you guys already know about it. Integrated self-advocacy helps us as professionals and family members to provide children and adults with ASD and other conditions with safe forums for self-discovery, learning activities, etc. Going along with this theme, the 5 self-advocacy skill areas: sensory, environmental, social, disclosure, deep and focused interests, and civil rights and entitlements. So self-determination, this is something that we see in our clients and the families. They want this for their child or their loved one. Choosing and enacting choices to control one's life to the maximum extent possible, based on knowing and valuing oneself and in the pursuit of one's own needs, interests, and values. So, of course, you guys know as parents that students who are self-determined, who have an idea of who they are and what they want to do and how they want to do it, they make things happen. They need to be able to set goals, solve problems that act as barriers to achieving their goals, make appropriate choices, participate in decisions that affect their quality of life, advocate for their own academic needs and services, create action plans to achieve goals, and self-regulate and self-manage day-to-day actions. So these are all kind of like the big that we like to see progress in as they continue through our program. So, motivating students to address their needs. We find that once students get a taste of independence, that is the high factor. Once they get, once they see how that is, they're like, oh man, I I want to go back to mom and dad's house. You know, it's highly motivating for them once they come with us, because they get to do what their peers are doing, what their siblings are doing or have done, and going to college and, you know, living more independently and getting to make their own decisions. So I'm sure that you guys are familiar with a lot of this as well. You know, we try to make our services as enjoyable as possible to students. We try to give them a lot of say in how things get done, because everybody's different, so everybody's motivated by something different, or they enjoy different activities or different rewards. That one of our CLE centers was having is that students just they're supposed to sign in and sign out. So we have records, obviously, of when they were there, and students just not. They were going to stick it to the man and not sign in. And so one thing that the center did to make it really fun is they did a would you rather question, and it was different every day, like whatever, and under the one that they preferred, like, to answer this question. So it was just, you know, that was the motivating factors, that they wanted to show everybody which one that they preferred, whatever it is. So we try to do that, you know, and we try to be creative and make it fun. Okay, so post-secondary education, as it pertains to the transition process. We start talking about this with families a lot of times early, not just your 17, 18-year-olds who are like at that point, but we have a conversation with families starting pretty early on. So this is what we would tell families by grade, or just some general good ideas to start thinking about as they're preparing for transition, or they're starting to say, what will that life look like for my child? So this is for, you know, 8th grade. Some people think that 8th grade is really early, and in a way it is, but it's not. It goes by really fast. So of course, obtain a copy of the high school course catalog and just plan out that course of study, at least mentally. You know, what do you want to take? What can you kind of cross out right away? We're finding a lot of people are looking at colleges even as early as 8th grade, or they're at least trying to see, like, okay, is out of state feasible or not? You know, are we thinking traditional 4-year university or something different, like starting at a community college? So families are starting to say, what can we do? So these are just certain, you know, action steps that families and students can take. Start saving money. I love that one. I think that should be from birth. And then for 9th grade, these are more steps, you know, developing skills for academic independence, time management, study skills, note-taking. And these are things that might be a little bit more difficult for our kids, you know. So we try to tell families who come to us early, you know, it is a good time. It is a good time to start thinking about these things. Assistive technology, transition plans. They'll have a high school counselor. I'm sure. Do they still call them guidance counselors, or like, is that okay? So who can also be of great assistance for that. 10th grade is when typically we find, you know, people start visiting colleges and act, oh my God, okay, it's coming. So then that's when they usually have to take some exams, and just continue developing good work habits. 11th grade, again, everybody's visiting colleges, everybody's saying, you know, I can't wait to get out of high school, I can't wait to be done with this place. And people start actually doing their some of their applications, their entrance exams, scholarships, all of that comes into play. And then, of course, in 12th grade, that's when everybody really wants to finish up, and they need to get a lot of, it's a really busy year, as you guys know, you know, and they have to get a lot in if they're preparing to go to college. Now, as I said, not all of our clients go to college, and that's okay. Or some of them are not ready right away, especially if they're coming to one of our CLE centers. Sometimes the transition from mom and dad to a pretty independent environment is tough enough as it is. So some of our students will spend a few months or even 6 months or however long they need just getting used to that, and we'll give them services in independent living skills and social skills in that part. And then maybe they'll add in college, maybe they won't. It's up to them. Now I know that you guys know a lot of this stuff. But these are just some links. Okay. And again, you guys might be familiar with some of this stuff, but what kind of documentation do colleges need if someone is planning to go that route? Usually they will need a specific diagnosis statement, the findings that support that diagnosis, information concerning the impact of the disability on the educational setting, and you know, documentation has to look official, letterhead, all that good stuff. Say I need a so accommodations and disclosure with students, maybe they're going to go straight into an internship or a part-time job, or something that they're interested in. This is what we in our families: modification versus accommodation. So modification is a reduction, change, or limitation. It's a change in the form of something, and it's not offered by a lot of schools and workplaces in most instances. I can't say all, but it's not as common. An accommodation is just to adjust or adapt, and that is required by federal law in both school and in the workplace. And then full disclosure versus partial disclosure. Sometimes our students ask that all the time, like, well, should I, how much should I tell them? Should I give them like a 5-page type document of everything, or can I just tell them I'm on the spectrum? And they struggle with how much do they disclose because they don't want it to affect other areas of how they're perceived. But it's a very valid question. In full disclosures, I have fill in the blank, and this is how it affects me, and these are the symptoms, and this is what I go through, versus partial, just saying, hey, I have a disability and I need this reasonable accommodation to do whatever needs to be done here. And it really just depends on the student, and we can help them express that if they need help, but usually we find that partial is enough. If they give the partial, it's rare that we find that colleges will be like, no, we need the 5-page type document of symptoms or whatever. So these are some of the accommodations or services that colleges offer. Now, this is all a really great list, but it is not at all usually sufficient for what our students need, because they just don't have the staff or the inclination or the time or the resources or the knowledge to provide that one-on-one support that places like us, like what we provide. So it's great, and people are definitely trying, but most schools that I've talked to have said, do you do consulting work? Can you come teach us how to help students with autism? Or because we don't know what to do. We don't know how to help them, and then the student ends up not doing well, and it becomes a very negative experience, and it's not out of anything malicious, it's just that they don't have the staff or anything. So roommate or no roommate, I know I said that in our program at College Living Experience at our 6 centers, usually students will have a roommate. Usually they're ready for that. Now, not all of them do. Some of them, it just wouldn't be a good idea for them or the roommate, so they just live by themselves, and that's totally fine. It really depends on where the person is in their development, and of course their diagnosis. Some of them will just say, okay, yeah, no roommate. But a lot of them, it's uncomfortable at first, but we find that it really serves a lot of good for them to use those social skills. But sometimes, roommate is better. It depends. With ILE, with independent living experience, most of our clients are not living with a roommate because they're not living in our this, our apartments. We come to them on an individual basis and help them with the skills that they need, but they're not, it's not exactly like, apartments or dorms or anything like that. It can be very, very stressful, and we see that. Some people have started out with roommates and then had to go to no roommate, and that's fine too, because it is really stressful. Most of our students will do well with a quiet, private room or apartment. Now, with our students, even at CLE, they do each have their own bedroom and own bathroom. So that personal space that's private and they get to have it the way they're comfortable, that makes a big difference because, sharing a living room and a kitchen is one thing, but sharing a bedroom and a bathroom is a whole different thing. So I think that the vast majority of our students do need somewhere quiet and safe to retreat to. I think we all do. We provide mentors and advisors as part of our program, but one thing that we do tell colleges or any other professionals is that having a student or a friend who serves as that liaison, as that mentor, is really, really beneficial. The person can help advocate for their needs, they can serve as a role model, and they can help them with just anything that they need, registration, how to get around campus, communication with parents and professors. Now, we provide all of those services, as part of what we offer. But for, people who are not in our program, this is kind of what we say, is there anybody who could kind of step in and help out for those students who need to just get acclimated? And we find that, once they learn how to do it, they know how to do it, and they can, and that's a great. So these are some common questions that we get about the post-secondary transition. Can a school deny the child admission based on their disability, and do they have to disclose it? So a school can't deny admission based on a disability, and anybody always has a right to say, yes, I have a disability, no, I don't, or not say anything, or to choose that full or partial disclosure. However, if anybody wants services from a college or anybody else, they have to disclose that they need them. So there's that. So do high school accommodations and modifications affect college services? So they're basically two independent processes. The student will receive different services in college than in high school. It's just a different environment. An IEP can be helpful to colleges, but they have no responsibility to follow them. It's helpful a lot of times to see what the student has been receiving, and we request copies of previous IEPs, just so then we can see what was the student receiving, did it work well, not, what was the feedback. It's a helpful tool for us, so that way we can structure our services. But with colleges, they probably won't ask for it because they wouldn't really know how to interpret it. If the college requests an evaluation before they will provide services, who pays? Most of the time it's the family who ends up paying for all of that. And will the child's high school transcript be marked as disabled or modified? Most likely not. Some states are changing the way that they call, the way that they name courses and different codes that they use, so that way special ed classes are not as glaring. So it just depends on what each school.
A lot of high schools just get different kinds of diplomas too. You don't get.
Yeah, it
sometimes
depends
you don't
on
get the same diploma.
It depends on the state, and it depends on how they do things. I know in Texas they are changing it to kind of make it less, just kind of more generic in the way that they're doing things. So with employment, these statistics just, they seem a little bit discouraging. The rate of adults with disabilities who are employed is 32.1% versus 73.8% for people without disabilities. And then the statistics as it pertains to adults on the autism spectrum, 9 out of 10 are either unemployed or underemployed, regardless of their IQ or education level. 500,000 children with autism will become adults over the next decade. And only 55.1% of young adults with autism held paying jobs during their first 6 years out of high school and that is the lowest percentage among the disability categories that were examined. So this is something that we want to change. Our students, our clients do amazing things with the right support, and we help them navigate that. Everything from, okay, how do you even open up an online job application? You know, how do you get it up on the screen? What is the information? Where does it all go? To preparing our resume, to mock interviews. We have employers who come in who do mock interviews, and actually some of our students have been hired out of those mock interviews, but they ended up being so impressed with our students that they offered them a job, you know, just from that experience. And then if they need a ride to a job interview, we'll help them with that. You know, all the way we want to support our students who feel that they want to do an internship in a situation. So the job market, I think, we know that it's tough for everybody, but this is kind of where people really work in the US, these sectors. I know there's a lot of talk that everybody needs a bachelor's degree and that will be relevant. In reality, only 1/3 requirement. So that hands-on training that our students, you know, our clients do really, really well with, that's where it's going. And when are the best times to find jobs? Sorry. So our students do work year-round. Of course, during the busier times like the holidays, they're more likely to have that paying work. But our students work in so many different industries. One of our students is actually Employee of the Year for Jiffy Lube, for the whole company, for the whole country. Yeah, it was awesome. And you know, we have students in culinary programs, design programs, 2 traditional, you know, degrees in really complicated math that I don't even know the name of. But our students are really doing amazing things, and we partner with employers in the community so that way they can know us as a company, they know our student profile, and they know that we're going to be there providing the support, the job coaching, the training, all of that, and it's at no cost to them. So for job development options, this is what we talk to students about when they're trying to plan out what they're going to do. You know, we go over jobs that are requiring only a high school diploma, college-based training, those that require a degree. A lot of our students actually go to technical schools because they're really good and gifted in that area. Registered apprenticeship, self-employment, and volunteering. We encourage volunteering even if the student is not ready for, okay, let me go get a paying job. We try to encourage that as a group for our students. So for instance, at the Costa Mesa location of CLE, our students go once a week to a soup kitchen and they help prepare all of the desserts for to feed the homeless. So once a week they do that, and it's just a really good sense of community, and you know, it's really good. So we try to identify their interests, their strengths, and see where they might want to work, who's in the area, that kind of thing, of course. We use something called COPS. I don't know if you guys have heard of this before. It's not specific to us, so you know, it's not a proprietary thing for us, so it's out there. But what we do is we go over with the student this assessment, and it measures their interests, values, and abilities that are plotted onto a profile sheet, and it's matched up with 14 vocational areas. And this just gives a good reference point to start from, because sometimes we say, well, do you want to do this particular thing? And they're like, yeah, that sounds great. And then we'll say, do you want to do this particular thing? Yeah, that sounds great. So this really helps to pinpoint a little bit more and gives a starting point of where they might be really happy. So these are questions that our families ask us frequently. Do employers have to give a person with a disability preference in the application process? No. All they're required to do is provide reasonable accommodations. If they can't do basic job functions, then the employer, of course, is not required to hire or retain them at all. Are the accommodations automatic? No, they have to state they need them in order to get them, and usually that has to be in writing. Some employers will, of course, ask for documentation on that as well. And why can't Vogue Rehab, the school, or the job coach just get them the job, and why does this whole thing take so long? Now, most of our students with independent living experience, most of them, it takes about 3 months for them to get into a position. And part of it is because of the assessment process and the trust building with their job coach and whoever's helping them, so that's part of it. But you know, the reality is the only person that can offer to hire is the employer, and we can't control them as much as we would like to. I think we've all been at the mercy of a prospective employer and saying, you know, oh my God, why can't they just offer me the job? You know, and of course we all know it doesn't work like that. So we're at their mercy, and it's not a good feeling. With SSA programs, now I am certainly not by any means an expert in Social Security, but this is just kind of a very, very general overview of the 2 kinds of Social Security that our clients will get. Not the retirement, we don't really go into the retirement part, but with SSI, that's a monthly cash benefit up to $733, and it comes with Medicaid. And then SSDI, a lot of times it will come from like a grandparent or somebody else even who says, I'm entitled to SSDI, but hey, don't pay me, pay my grandson. So they have to have paid into Social Security to get this. Again, so that's why it usually comes from a family member, a lot of times a grandparent. And even after the person dies, if there's still money that's available, like from their pot, it still gets paid.
So they paid into it through whatever job they
Exactly.
had, not as a specific separate
Exactly.
thing. All they had to do was be employed. Okay.
Yeah. So that was something that I wasn't even really aware of, but. So there are, and again, this gets pretty technical, and I'm certainly not an expert, but there are ways for our clients and our students to earn more or to not have certain things taxed or count against Social Security, because you can't earn more than a certain amount if you're on it, you know, because it'll get canceled out. So these are just a few things. There's a plan to achieve self-support, PASS. Student earned income exclusion, if they're under age 22, they can get up to $17.30 per month forgiven from their check. But they have to request that in writing to Social Security. And then this is for Texas, because James, who was supposed to be here today but last minute couldn't, he's in Texas, so he references some of the Texas figures. They can keep Medicaid in Texas until they reach a certain amount of money. And then just to some websites, we put some links up here in case anybody has more questions. We always tell them to ask a Social Security expert, you know, but we try to just give kind of a basic idea. Again, this is James who prepared this presentation, but these are some of his favorite resources up there, socialthinking.com and jkp.com, which has a lot of good stuff, good reading. Bullies and jerks. Oh, sorry, I'll go back. And I think that this presentation will be available online and stuff, so yeah. It's hard to write down everything. Yeah.
So how long has your company been in business?
25 years.
And how many people have you helped over that time?
You know, I don't know the grand total over the whole time. I know that currently in CLE, we have 215 students.
And how many have gone on to work in regular jobs?
I don't have the exact, I don't want to give you the wrong figure. I know anecdotally, quite a few go on to at least part-time. You know, some of them will not ever necessarily be ready for a full-time 9 to 5, you know, all of that. But I could get you those figures. I just don't have them off the top of my head. I don't want to quote the wrong thing.
Thank you.
Can you miss a little bit at the beginning? This is a private pay service, or how?
Yeah,
do you
it's
handle
private
this?
pay.
Okay.
Yes, so that's independent living experience. That is when we have coaches and mentors actually go to wherever the person is to help them with independent living skills, social skills, employment in their community where they already are. With college living experience, it's a little bit, it's kind of the opposite. We have 6 centers across the United States. We have 2 in California, 1 in Costa Mesa, 1 up north in Monterey. And then we have Austin, Texas, Denver, Colorado, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and Washington, D.C. So they come to us. So the students actually come to CLE, to the center. They receive 20 to 30 hours a week of services with us in addition to whatever else they may choose to do. And that's completely, whatever's right for them. Whether that's college, whether that's no college, whether that's, employment track, it's up to them. And again, with ILE, we go to them, to wherever the person is, but it's not really academically focused. With CLE, they get full academic support, one-on-one tutoring for every class that they're in, supervised study halls, study groups. ILE is not so much academic. And, of course, they can live wherever they're living with mom and dad or,
What sort of background do the employees, the support workers have?
Licensed social workers.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Some of them do have an education and special ed background. But they're all at the master's level or higher.
Are you gonna go over tuition or not?
Yes, and I don't think it's on here, so I might as well go ahead and do it with ILE. So where we go to them, it's about $80 an hour. And most of our ILE clients, 4 hours a week, sometimes 6, of course, depending there, some can get 10 hours a week. It just depends on what's right for them. But on average, the average is 4 hours a week. With CLE, so that's just however many hours they get. Plus, there's a very small mileage charge if somebody has to drive like an hour or whatever out to see the person. I mean, it's like, just enough to cover that person's cost, basically. And then with CLE, it's done a little bit differently. It's done on a calendar year, 12 months contract, and that starts at $43,500 a year. And again, that's for 20 to 30 hours a week of services, but that does not include living expenses. So their apartment, the family pays for themselves, and students do use SSI and that kind of thing to cover living expenses. And it doesn't include any tuition because that is completely up to them, what school they attend, how many classes they take, all of that stuff is very variable. So that is the cost for CLE. Now, not all students need all of our services, so depending on, if they get everything, there's one price, and then if they don't, as they become more proficient, maybe they finish with us, they don't need academics anymore, they don't need independent living skills, and they just want social skill support and maybe employment. So the price would change accordingly with all of that as well. So just little chart here, what makes ILE unique? Weekly social involvement, living independently, meaningfully employed, and again, the key word is meaningfully, whatever is meaningful to them. We don't say, they have to get to full-time status, or they have to, nothing like that, whatever works for that person. And then if their quality of life is rated by them, average or better. So we have really, really happy clients, really happy families, people who are progressing the way that they want to. So James was supposed to be here today, so his information is all on this presentation. He is actually the director of ILE, and he is incredibly knowledgeable and just so wonderful. So any questions about ILE can certainly be directed to him at any time. There's a website, transitionmatters.org, where there's some good information as well. I have my card here if you guys want to. I'm with CLE specifically, but if you have questions, because there are certainly students who,
are a right fit for CLE, and then there's others who are a right fit for ILE, and we certainly do not want people to be where they're not getting what is exactly right for them. So we kind of, sometimes we'll say, oh no, you're going to do better at ILE, or no, James will say, oh, come to CLE because that seems to be a better fit.
I'm just curious, is this a nonprofit or?
No, we're not nonprofit. We're for profit, but even the nonprofits, they're all making money.
Yeah, no, I was just curious if it was
no, it's not.
government-sponsored or
It's
how
not
it was.
government
Okay.
sponsored. It's mostly private pay. Although we were saying in the state of California, it's awesome because through the regional centers there, we're considered an assisted living program. So they pay for everything except the academic portion. So families are left with approximately $10,000 a year. For the
So does the family have to live in California, or does you just send your students?
I don't. There's a certain amount of time that you have to establish residency, I believe, but again, I don't know the ins and outs. We could ask the Costa Mesa in California. They have an awesome regional center. I could think of somebody, like if they're coming from out of state in order to qualify, because everybody wants to. I talk to people all over, like, oh my God, we need that. Why don't we have that here? Because 10,000 is way more doable for families than 43.5, or even, we're kind of on the more reasonable end of that spectrum of support services in terms of costs. So, so that's a really good thing. But in most other states, there's not a whole lot to speak of, unfortunately. And it's a shame. Hopefully that will change. I think that's it. James just put up some resource websites and yeah. So we're up. ILE is up on the top, and the second one is the college living experience. In terms of resources, we have a lot more on our website and a lot of materials and stuff that your families might find useful and to go forward as they're starting to ask these questions.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're from Texas?
I'm from Los Angeles.
Oh, Los Angeles. Ooh, so quite a trip for this.
No, actually, I was here for the IECA conference.
Okay.
So I was here Wednesday, and that wrapped up yesterday, and it just so happened that James had kind of a last minute conflict, and I was going to be in town anyway, so it was kind of like, oh, it all works out. So yeah.
Where is the center, the ILE center in Phoenix? Is
There
it
is.
downtown? Oh, okay.
No, so ILE doesn't have
Arizona.
this. They don't have the centers. ILE has staff members,
Oh, okay.
And
So
kind of
if you were,
independently located, who go to the client and work
okay,
with
so you
them.
kind of work as a contractor without a central office, or?
For ILE,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
And then the other one, I'm sorry. the other
CLE, there are 6 centers. There isn't one in Arizona yet. The closest would be either Costa Mesa in California, or there's Denver. Yeah.
I'm just curious if there was an office for the.
Yeah.
I just wonder if it was.
No, not for
Okay.
not for ILE yet, but they have people who can reach out to anybody.
Yeah.
So.
It saves overhead costs anyway.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an interesting model, and we are very. We operate, or ILE operates in Arizona now, but we're expanding all over the place because people really want these support services, and it's just that little bit, well, not little bit, but it's just that extra help that these students need to be successful.
Yes.
And it makes a difference.
Does DDD cover any of the independent living
I don't know.
through hours? Because they do respite and rehabilitation, and I'm just wondering if rehabilitation that can be applied towards.
That's a good question. I don't know, since each state is so different. We're working or we're looking into Missouri because they have some interesting funding options. But each state is just so different in how they do it and what they will accept under their programs and what they won't. So I'll ask James about that because he might know, because he's directly in contact with the staff here in Arizona. I know, I wish that there were better options,
I don't know either, but rehabilitation hours, they could qualify perhaps for some of this.
Possibly.
It is all, what you're talking about is transition life skills and
Mhm.
rehabilitation is all a part of that. Right?
Everything technically, yeah.
I'm in the same boat. I worked for a business that was founded by an adult with autism and employs adults with autism, and we sell Biscotti, and they're $2 each. Because it takes a lot of work to train someone to be able to make a product and package a product and label it. And people pick it up and go, $2 for a cookie. I'm like, but there's a lot that goes into it. So it's kind of a different expense because it's the customers, not the clients themselves. But we pay all our employees $10 an hour minimum.
Yeah, that's
And our
great.
highest paid employee is making $15 an hour to base. And he's an adult on the spectrum. So
Awesome.
it's something that sometimes you don't pay for it.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you,
All
guys.
right, thank you.
Well, thank you for coming and all that.
Yeah.
Say, why didn't you suggest?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Flying home tonight?
I am.